Chosen one, this Sunday is a quiet moment of exposure. What has been trying to hold you back may become easier to recognize, and your silence will help you see it without giving it more power. You may have felt a tightness in your chest whenever certain people spoke, as if your body understood a threat your mind kept trying to excuse. You may have wondered why every attempt to move forward seemed to awaken resistance, delay, confusion, or guilt. But the tension is not always proof that you are failing. Sometimes it reveals what has been depending on your fear. This Sunday, do not rush to defend yourself against every accusation or explain every change in your heart. Stay quiet long enough to notice who becomes uncomfortable when you stop responding. The person who benefits from your confusion may call your silence pride, distance, or disobedience, but you are not required to surrender your peace to prove your love. There is a difference between being hidden by God and being held back by someone who fears your freedom. If you have sensed that a season keeps repeating without understanding why, the call of the chosen, a 30-day journey can help you name what you are living, separate waiting from abandonment, and recognize a faithful next step without panic. To access the ebook, go now to the top of the comments and click the link in the pinned comment. Now feel the room around you again, and let the silence become a place where truth can breathe. You do not need to announce every revelation before it has finished forming. This Sunday is not presented as a guarantee that every hidden motive will be publicly revealed or that every conflict will resolve on a schedule. It is a devotional marker, a moment to examine what your attention has been feeding and what your fear has been protecting. When someone wants to keep you small, they rarely begin by saying, "I want to limit your life." They may use concern, familiarity, religious language, old memories, or subtle disappointment. They may remind you of who you were whenever you begin to act like who you are becoming. You might leave a conversation feeling guilty for having boundaries, confused for wanting clarity, or ashamed that you no longer fit inside the role assigned to you. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zurzazuru readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. That feeling deserves discernment, not immediate condemnation. Silence does not mean passivity. Silence can mean refusing to let another person write the first draft of your response. In the quiet, you begin to hear the difference between conviction and manipulation, between wisdom and intimidation, between a warning that protects you and a voice that profits from your hesitation. There are moments when the clearest answer is not a sharper argument, but a slower reaction. You do not have to win every exchange that is designed to drain you. You do not have to correct every false impression created by people committed to misunderstanding you. If your character is known only when you are constantly defending it, then you may be living under a burden that was never assigned to you. The heavens do not need you to perform panic in order to prove that you are serious. You can speak when speech serves truth, and you can remain quiet when speech would only provide more material for confusion. This is not about becoming cold. It is about allowing your inner life to stop being an open doorway for every anxious demand. Notice what happens when you delay your reply. Notice whether peace returns, whether your thoughts become clearer, and whether the urgency still feels holy after the emotional heat has passed. The person who wants control often needs immediate access to your emotions. Wisdom can wait. You may already be seeing ordinary signs. A familiar conversation leaves you exhausted before it even begins. A certain invitation awakens dread instead of gratitude. You keep receiving the same kind of pressure through different people, as though one message is trying to force you back into an old position. At the same time, small moments of clarity have begun appearing. A sentence in scripture, a sudden understanding during prayer, a quiet refusal in your spirit, or the simple realization that you are allowed to stop explaining yourself. These signs are not automatic proof of a spiritual conspiracy. They are invitations to pay attention. The title says that this Sunday exposes who wants to hold you back, but exposure may first happen inside you, where you recognize the agreements you made with fear. You may discover that the strongest restraint is not another person's demand, but your belief that peace must be purchased through constant availability. God can show you what is happening without turning you into a suspicious person. Discernment sees clearly without becoming cruel. Think of Joseph in the ordinary years before his public restoration. He had been misunderstood by his brothers, carried away from what he knew, and placed inside a life he did not choose. Yet in the house of Potiphar and later in prison, he did not allow betrayal to become his identity. He learned how to remain faithful without having control over the room, the schedule, or the opinions surrounding him. Your present silence may feel less dramatic than Joseph's story, but the inner decision is related. Will you allow the people who misread you to determine how you see yourself? Will you become so focused on the injustice that you abandon the character being formed in you? Joseph did not need to chase every person who had harmed him in order for his life to keep moving. Sometimes the first exposure is realizing that the one who tried to imprison your future is no longer the one who possesses it. The key may have changed hands long before your emotions caught up. Many readers who arrived feeling confused or tired of waiting said the material helped them understand their season more clearly, organize their prayers, or stop interpreting every silence as abandonment. That is why the call of the chosen, a 30-day journey, may serve as a useful companion when you need to distinguish waiting from preparation, closure from redirection, and fear from direction, rather than reacting to every uncertain moment. To access the ebook, go now to the top of the comments and click the link in the pinned comment. Now return to the question beneath the pressure. What would you do today if you did not need permission from the person who preferred your old version? Do not answer with a performance. Let the question work quietly in you. The person trying to hold you back may not be an obvious enemy. Sometimes it is a family pattern that taught you to feel guilty whenever you outgrew an expectation. Sometimes it is a friendship built around mutual wounds, where your healing feels like rejection. Sometimes it is a workplace culture that rewards your exhaustion and calls your boundaries a lack of commitment. Sometimes it is your own memory, repeating an old failure every time you approach a new opportunity. The exposure of this Sunday may therefore be more personal than public. You may recognize that you have been asking for a door to open, while continuing to obey the voice that tells you not to touch the handle. You may be waiting for someone else to approve the life you were called to steward. That recognition can sting, but it is not meant to shame you. A wound becomes easier to treat when it is no longer being covered by religious language, forced optimism, or endless explanations. You have probably mistaken urgency for importance at least once. A message arrives, and your body reacts before your discernment can speak. A demand is framed as an emergency, and suddenly you feel responsible for fixing what you did not break. A person says that if you truly cared, you would answer immediately, agree completely, or abandon your own conviction. But love does not require you to surrender every boundary. Compassion is not the same as compliance. A holy life is not measured by how quickly you can be pulled away from peace. If you remain silent for a moment, you may notice that the demand was not for love, but for control. You may also notice where your own fear has been cooperating with it, because fear often prefers a familiar cage to an uncertain freedom. Do not punish yourself for learning slowly. Just stop calling the cage home once you recognize the bars. There is a reason the title directs you to stay in silence. Silence prevents you from revealing the location of your deepest confidence to people who have only been studying your reactions. It gives you time to see whether someone is responding to truth or merely losing access to your anxiety. When you no longer rush to explain, some relationships will become more honest. A healthy person may ask what you need and respect your answer. A controlling person may increase the pressure, rewrite the story, or accuse you of changing. Their reaction will not tell you everything, but it will give you information. You are not being called to investigate everyone around you. You are being invited to stop ignoring what your own conscience has repeatedly placed before you. There is no virtue in pretending not to see. There is also no wisdom in turning every uncomfortable feeling into a verdict. Hold the observation gently. Pray over it. Let time reveal whether the pattern remains when the emotion settles. The deepest restraint often begins with a sentence you absorbed long ago. You cannot do this without us. Perhaps the sentence was never spoken exactly that way. Perhaps it appeared through mockery when you tried something new, withdrawal when you made an independent choice, or affection that was offered only when you remained useful. Over time, you learned to ask whether your growth would inconvenience someone else before asking whether it was faithful. You learned to minimize your calling so nobody would feel threatened by it. You learned to announce your plans too early, seeking approval before courage had matured. This is why silence can be protective. It lets a seed remain beneath the soil, while its roots develop away from the hands that might disturb it. You do not need to broadcast every move in order for God to bless your obedience. You can honor people without handing them the authority to veto your becoming. At this point, recognition alone is not enough. You need a way to organize what you are sensing, because confusion can make every decision feel equally dangerous. The Call of the Chosen. A 30-day journey offers a practical path for guided reflection, prayer, and discernment, so you can identify whether you are waiting, being prepared, closing a cycle, or beginning again. Then consider the next faithful step without letting panic make the decision for you. Many people return to this kind of material when a new season makes old fears speak loudly, and to access the ebook, go now to the top of the comments and click the link in the pinned comment. Place your hand over your heart for a moment and ask what fear has been demanding that wisdom has not confirmed. You do not need to solve the entire future tonight. You need to become honest about the next obedient step. Now imagine a sealed room with a narrow window high above the floor. This will be the only image we carry through the center of this message. For a long time, you have stood inside that room, believing the walls were the whole world, because the people around you kept describing them as protection. They told you that the outside was too uncertain, that your gifts were too fragile, that your questions were dangerous, and that your safest choice was to remain where everyone understood your role. Yet the small window kept receiving light. You could not reach it, but you could see enough to know that the room was not all there was. The light did not shout. It did not force the door open. It simply returned each morning, showing you that your confinement was not the same as your identity. This Sunday, the one who wants to hold you back may be exposed by the way they react when you turn toward that window instead of toward their instructions. Inside that room, formation happened in hiddenness. You learned to listen because no one applauded your patience. You learned to distinguish a passing shadow from the steady light. You learned that not every movement beyond the window was an invitation to run, and not every sound in the hallway was a threat. The silence that once felt like punishment became a place where your senses sharpened, your eyes adjusted, your breathing slowed. You discovered that freedom begins internally before circumstances rearrange themselves externally. The person who tried to keep you confined may have assumed that isolation would make you forget the world beyond the walls. Instead, the hidden season taught you to recognize light. What was formed in secret cannot always be understood by those who only see the final movement. Do not despise the time when nobody could measure your progress. The room was not proof that God had abandoned you. It was the place where your vision became trustworthy. Then opposition appeared. A voice in the hallway called your name and reminded you of every reason to stay away from the window. It said that you were ungrateful, unstable, impatient, or presumptuous. It promised that if you stepped into a wider life, you would lose the people who had kept you company inside the room. It used familiar fears because familiar fears are efficient, but the voice could not remove the light. It could only attempt to make you distrust what the light had shown you. This is how restraint often works. It does not destroy your desire. It surrounds your desire with shame until you abandon it voluntarily. You must learn to identify the difference between a genuine warning and a rehearsed accusation. A warning brings clarity and responsibility. An accusation leaves you circling the same guilt without a constructive path forward. As you remain quiet, the voice may become louder, but volume is not authority. Movement begins with a small decision inside the room. You do not have to break the wall with your bare hands. You do not have to prove your courage by creating unnecessary conflict in the hallway. You may simply stand, walk toward the window, and refuse to turn away. You may stop asking whether the light has permission to enter. You may gather what you need, make a wise plan, seek trustworthy counsel, and take one step that aligns with truth. The person who wants to hold you back may expect dramatic rebellion, because drama can be criticized and used against you. Quiet obedience is harder to control. It does not need a public announcement. It does not need revenge. It simply keeps moving toward what is honest. Your movement may look small to others, but a step toward freedom is still a step away from captivity. Recognition comes when you understand that the room never had the final word. The window was not a fantasy. It was evidence that your perception had survived the confinement. You are not required to hate the room, deny what it taught you, or pretend that the walls did not hurt. You can acknowledge the season and still leave its limitations behind. You can forgive people without returning your life to their control. You can be grateful for what you learned without remaining loyal to what diminished you. This Sunday, exposure may not come through a dramatic confrontation. It may come when you notice that the person who once determined your mood no longer has the same access. It may come when their disappointment no longer sounds like divine instruction. It may come when you realize that silence is not hiding your truth. It is allowing your truth to become strong enough to stand without constant defense. You are still you when nobody applauds your boundaries. You are still chosen for obedience when a familiar person misunderstands your decision. You are still held by God when a door closes because you refuse to enter through manipulation. Do not measure your spiritual condition by the amount of resistance around you. Resistance can mean that an old arrangement is losing its grip, but it can also simply mean that change is difficult. Either way, your task is not to glorify opposition. Your task is to remain honest, humble, and awake. Let your silence be clean, not punitive. Let your distance be wise, not vindictive. Let your words, when they come, be fewer and truer. You do not need to become inaccessible to become free. You need to become governed by conviction rather than by the fear of someone else's reaction. One practice for this season is to create a quiet interval before responding to any message or request that produces immediate pressure. During that interval, notice the facts without decorating them, name the emotion without obeying it, and ask whether the response you are preparing will create peace or merely postpone conflict. If you need to answer, answer simply. If you need more time, say so without offering a long defense. You are training your spirit to respond from discernment instead of reflex. This practice will not make every relationship comfortable, but it will make your inner life more truthful. The person who depended on your instant reaction may call this change selfish. Let the accusation pass through the room without becoming your identity. Quiet does not mean you have nothing to say. It means you are choosing the right voice to follow. A second practice is to separate what belongs to your responsibility from what belongs to another person's disappointment. You can take responsibility for your tone, your promises, your finances, your commitments, and the consequences of your choices. You cannot take responsibility for someone else refusing to accept your maturity. You cannot carry the emotional cost of every person who preferred your dependence. Write the difference clearly in your mind, even if you never place it on paper. Ask, what is mine to repair and what is theirs to process? This question can prevent you from apologizing for obedience or carrying blame that was placed on you to keep you accessible. God does not require you to manage every reaction in order to walk in love. Sometimes love becomes healthier when truth is allowed to create distance. You may still feel afraid when you take the next step. Courage is not the absence of trembling. It is the decision not to let trembling become your commander. The body remembers places where it was punished for being honest. Your throat may tighten before you speak. Your hands may become cold before you set a boundary. Your thoughts may predict rejection before anything has happened. Meet those sensations with patience. Breathe, pray, ask for wisdom. Do not shame yourself for having a nervous system shaped by difficult experiences, but do not treat every sensation as a prophecy either. Fear can be present while you are moving in the right direction. Peace may arrive after obedience rather than before it. This Sunday, the one who wants to hold you back may be exposed not because you feel no fear, but because you stop making decisions solely to avoid it. There is a quiet dignity in allowing people to reveal themselves without helping them construct the revelation. You do not have to bait anyone into showing their motives. You do not need to test, provoke, or trap them. Simply stop volunteering your deepest vulnerabilities to those who have repeatedly used them against you. Stop arguing with a version of you that exists only in their story. Stop handing them new evidence each time they accuse you of changing. Your consistency will speak through time. If someone must keep you confused in order to keep you close, then clarity will feel like betrayal to them. Let that feeling belong to them. You can grieve the relationship you hoped for while accepting the relationship that exists. You can pray for a person without allowing their patterns to govern your future. Silence gives you room to mourn without returning to the place that wounded you. This is why your Sunday may feel different even if the external scene looks the same. The room may still have the same walls, the same voices, the same unfinished questions. Yet you are no longer looking at it with the same agreement. You have seen the window, you have felt the light, you have recognized the voice that calls confinement safety. Now you can choose differently without demanding that everyone understand. The exposure is not merely about who tried to restrain you. It is about what their pressure uncovered in you. The longing to live honestly, the fatigue of performing smallness, the desire to obey without fear, and the quiet certainty that your life cannot remain organized around another person's insecurity. You are not running from responsibility, you are returning to it. Your life, your gifts, your peace, and your relationship with God require stewardship, not surrender to control. You are allowed to move slowly and still be moving. You are allowed to be careful and still be courageous. You are allowed to leave a pattern without explaining every detail to the people who benefited from it. You are allowed to protect your attention while keeping your heart free from hatred. The freedom ahead of you is not an invitation to become arrogant. It is an invitation to become whole. If you must speak, speak with clean hands. If you must leave, leave without creating a new prison through bitterness. If you must wait, wait with your eyes open. The title calls you to stay silent because there are moments when your restraint becomes a form of protection for the future God is shaping in you. Let the hidden motives lose their audience. Let the accusations lose their echo. Let your obedience become more important than your reputation. If this message has reached a place in you that has been difficult to name, let the thoughts settle without forcing an immediate conclusion. Perhaps the person who wants to hold you back is not someone you need to confront today. Perhaps the first change is internal. You stop interpreting their discomfort as a command, stop confusing their fear with your destiny, and stop calling your own clarity a betrayal. The light through the window is still there. You may not yet know what the entire path looks like, but you know enough to stop walking in circles. You know that silence can protect discernment. You know that truth does not need panic to remain true. You know that a faithful step can be quiet, ordinary, and still decisive. What is being exposed may be the exact thing you need to release in order to move with a steadier heart. The world often teaches you to announce victory before you have learned how to carry it. But God can teach you another way. He can teach you to let roots deepen before branches are displayed, to let conviction mature before it becomes a speech, and to let peace become real before it becomes visible. You do not need to persuade everyone that you are changing. Your life will eventually show what your mouth could never prove. The people who are meant to walk with you will not require you to remain wounded in order to feel secure. The people who only loved your limitation may withdraw when you stop apologizing for growth. That loss may hurt, but pain is not always punishment. Sometimes pain is the sound of an old attachment loosening. Stay gentle with yourself as it happens. There is no need to turn this Sunday into a day of suspicion. Let it be a day of sober recognition. Notice who honors your conscience. Notice who pressures you to betray it. Notice which conversations leave you more truthful and which ones require you to become smaller to maintain peace. Notice what your prayers have been circling. Notice where you have been asking for confirmation while ignoring what has already become clear. The answer may not arrive as a dramatic sign. It may arrive as the strength to stop repeating one sentence, one apology, one compromise, or one explanation. When you remain silent, you are not abandoning the people around you. You are refusing to abandon the person God is teaching you to become. And if someone came to mind while you were hearing this, remember that your care for them does not require you to return to captivity. You may love someone and still refuse their control. You may bless someone and still close the door on a destructive pattern. You may wish them healing and still protect your own healing. The most mature response is sometimes not confrontation, but a faithful change in access. Give fewer explanations. Keep your commitments clear. Seek counsel from someone who does not profit from your confusion. Then allow the consequences to reveal what arguments never could. Silence is not a weapon in your hand. It is a shelter where your motives can be purified before you act. There is also a warning here for the part of you that wants immediate vindicts. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you. And strengthen your mind. also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zurzazara readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.